This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the program. It's Wednesday, July the 16th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, and David Williams. You know him. He's produced the program. You'll be speaking with Dave when you pick up the phone, give us a call, get in the queue, and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So the 2025 Canada Summer Games are just 23 days away. This evening, there'll be an opportunity for folks to attend a pep rally in support of the athletes. So that's 6 p.m. this evening, Crosby Road at the Powerplex, a pep rally to get the athletes all jazzed up for the competition. Opening ceremony is 23 days from now. All right, interesting Major League Baseball All-Star game last night. This playoff routine with the swing-off was actually kind of exciting. I mean, it's really not much on the line, so entertaining the fans is the ultimate goal. But anyway, let's go Jays here in the so-called second half. A couple of quick random baseball notes. On this date, 1941, Joe DiMaggio goes 3 for 4, hitting in his 56th straight game. He went hitless the next game, of course, so the 56 consecutive game hitting streak, which will never be broken, was happened today on this date, 1941. And Blue Jays bench boss Don Mattingly, then in 1987 as a member of the New York Yankees, hit his 4th Grand Slam of the season and tied an American League record of homers in 6 straight games. He went on to hit homers in 8 straight games, and that's a Major League record. All right. Congratulations to Morgan McDonald and anybody who was involved in bringing what is an absolutely beautiful statue of Gordon Pinson to Grand Falls. Of course, the pride of Grand Falls, one of the province's favorite sons. Morgan McDonald has done incredible work here in the province, and the statue of Pinson sitting on the park bench, turned aside and leaning over as if he was speaking with someone on the bench, is really quite beautiful. Apparently, it's outside the town hall. Now it's going to move to a place, perched where you can look up and down High Street, apparently the neighbourhood where he grew up. So, really beautiful piece of art out there in Central. All right, another sweltering hot day on tap here. 9 fires currently burning in the province, a couple in Labrador, 1 out-of-control fire, Chance Harbour. People are being encouraged to evacuate the area, and it's not for me to tell you what to do, but better safe than sorry. Even though the weather has kind of cooperated insofar as pushing the fire away from the community, so we're told. But 9 fires are burning, and just that friendly reminder to be responsible as an individual so that you're not behind sparking one of these fires that could grow out of control. And with the heat, probably a good idea to check in on some of your most vulnerable neighbours. It can be pretty overwhelming between the humidity and just the sheer heat itself. And man, oh man, thank goodness for a mini split. Now, not everyone has one, but it has been a real game changer for us. On that front, let's talk electricity. We know that Hydro-Quebec, we could talk anything inside the Memorandum of Understanding. It's big and complex, and there's 4 major projects therein, but it's still one of the biggest files being negotiated on the fast track, seemingly, to definitive agreements. But anyway, let's take it on. We know Hydro-Quebec has all the control as to whether or not Gull Island gets developed. If indeed it does get developed, then our equity share will be paid for by Hydro-Quebec to the tune of $3.5 billion. If it's not developed, even though I'm not exactly sure of the timeline, if it doesn't get developed, then they'll pay us $1.5 billion. They've suspended their work at the Gull Island site, doing some geotechnical and environmental studies. Cost $10-15 million, not a huge dime for Hydro-Quebec, but it's been suspended because of some protests and out of respect for what is an Indigenous gathering on the site coming up. On that front, I've got people sending me notes about electricity all the time, and I appreciate the information. Then you look at some of the big stories about just how much power, electricity, is going to be gobbled up by these artificial intelligence data centers. Google entering into a massive deal down in Pennsylvania, Meta talking about spending hundreds of billions of dollars to power artificial intelligence. Look, the big companies, if their shareholders are on site, I guess they'll do whatever they want. But talk about, and for the most part, an enormous waste of money, an enormous waste of electricity. The footprint that it's going to have in this world is going to be astounding. Is AI helpful in many corners? Absolutely. Does the way that's proceeding at this breakneck pace actually reflect the reality for most individuals listening to this show, most individuals living on the planet that need what AI is going to deliver? Maybe not so much. On that front, many of the big multinational corporations are using artificial intelligence and chatbots to interview job applicants. One such story, McDonald's. So they had very weak password security. Consequently, a lot of people's personal information got leaked. So there's probably some good tips out there if you are interviewing for a job at one of these multinationals and you know that you're being interviewed by a chatbot, by artificial intelligence. The companies need to do better. Just as simple as that. If they're going to use that mechanism to interview job applicants, then any personal information that we put forward as an applicant has got to be protected. You know, companies, governments are far too reckless, given the amount of hacks that we've seen in this province, around the country and around the world. They want me to digitize all my personal information, but consequently putting it at risk. And maybe, just maybe, not recognizing the red flags, not understanding the vulnerabilities, and consequently my information that you forced me to give you is now being floated out there by black market cyber thieves to do who knows what with. So beware if you're looking for a job this summer or anytime in the future. You might be being interviewed by said chat bot. All right. So yesterday we were told that the province has a plan, and this is not new, to wean our reliance on travel nurses. Okay. There's a lot to the travel nurse conversation. So at this point, last year the peak was 350 travel agency nurses. It's about 250 now, and the hopes to get it under 200 by next April. And of course, that's helped by the graduating class of 2026. All right, nursing vacancies, we're now told by the government it stands at 280. I wonder, does Yvette Coffey and the Registered Nurses Union agree with that number? In addition to this, and this is absolutely important, so we have gone through the Auditor General's report regarding travel agency nurses and all the potential for fraud and the cost, like $400,000 per nurse, as we're told, which is about 3 times more than a public sector registered nurse. But now there's going to be a Public Accounts Committee for Tuesday, August the 12th. So it's going to be held in the House of Assembly chamber. The public can indeed attend. Dr. Pat Parfrey, of course, the CEO of Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services, he'll be answering questions, as well as some other senior leaders inside NLHS. All right, that's a good thing. But what about those under senior leadership who were involved in things, for instance, like the lack of oversight associated with invoices that were submitted and paid out for things that can't even be verified? You know, whether it be a rental car for someone who wasn't in the province, whether it be for a variety of other things that weren't covered under contracts. What about those people? I mean, isn't that kind of an important voice to hear from? They will be, for the most part, shielded from public scrutiny. And I do wonder whether or not Crystalline Howell and or the Premier or anybody else, if we were told clearly by the Auditor General that there was possibilities of fraud, what's being done? It's fine to implement guardrails and safeguards, as they should, inside the operations of government and health services and the government itself. But what about the allegations of fraud? Has anything happened? Have any of these files specifically been turned over the RNC? We need to know. And again, people can talk about heads must roll or what have you. Look, if we have people who have not entertained and have not had to swear into a conflict of interest, whether it be for people who may indeed have been in management and may indeed have been making decisions to hire travel agency nurses and all the while become their landlord at the same time, there's still a lot here to understand inside that Auditor General's report. And it's a good thing that questions will be offered by members of the Public Accounts Committee. But what about those under senior leadership who were also involved here? What about them? Anyway, if you want to talk about that issue, which is a massive issue, we can do exactly that. All right, this is an interesting story. So we've seen all the numbers from Stats Canada talking about serious crimes and the trend that's taken place since 2013. All right. Homicide rates have increased by 12% between 2013 and 2023. Criminal harassment has skyrocketed, an increase of 101%. Extortion increased 195%. We've seen a recent study or a poll coming from the government itself talk about the fact that so many people listening to the program this morning feel less safe than they did 5 years ago. Then this conversation and an interview with a criminologist and associate professor at Memorial University, Adrienne Peters. She says rising crime stats don't actually say much about public safety. This is an interesting perspective. It's important to report the numbers, to look at the numbers, to follow them over time and look for patterns. But in terms of everyday safety, we are still incredibly safe. Our province of Newfoundland and Labrador is one of the safest places, not only in the country, but in the world. All right. The media does play a role here with sensationalizing crime, which does indeed seep into the psyche of people reading or listening or watching media reports on crime. It's important for the media to put the information out there. Of course it is. Now, the province has launched a crime dashboard, which I think is a pretty helpful tool. But the difference between, random acts of violence, of which is pretty infrequent here, versus criminals engaged with criminal activity with other criminals, whether it be fueled by drugs or otherwise. So it's an interesting way to look at the world. There is a difference between gangland violence amongst gangsters versus everyday, honest, hard-working Johns and Janes and Joes who are just going about their life trying to keep their head above water, pay the bills, look after their kids, all the rest of it. So that is an interesting perspective on crime. And the media's role, I think, is also an important conversation. That said, the allegations, a reported incident on the Virginia River Trail. A woman was assaulted, 9 o'clock in the morning. There is a description out there. Let's see. I'll give it out. All right. So, suspect described as 20 to 30 years of age, around 5'9", wearing a blue and white bike helmet and a brown T-shirt that says Metal Militia, which I'm not even sure what that is. He was last seen around the boulevard. Since that story made it into the news, tons of people have reached out to us in a variety of fashions to say that they will not walk alone. They will not go for a run alone. And women talking about carrying bear spray and carrying a whistle and those types of things. Look, it's not to put the onus on everyday citizens going for a walk or a run, but when you hear those stories, and this is one act of random violence, and what type of assault was alleged here, I really have no idea. But since that story was out there, plenty of people have reached out to us saying, look, I can no longer, whether it be at night or in this case, 9 o'clock in the morning, just go for a stroll around the Virginia River Trail or wherever else. It's not just there, but contradictory stories are back to back. Okay. So the province, I guess it was Friday, talked about releasing some 600 additional childcare spaces, including a bunch that will be in the form of junior kindergarten. Not every school has the physical footprint maybe to accommodate junior kindergarten, but let's just take this a step further. If every single school in the province that has the ability to have a junior kindergarten, that would go a long way, not only for early childhood education, but just imagine if you took, a significant percentage of 4-year-olds in the province out of the childcare system, as we traditionally understand it, and into junior kindergarten. We'd probably do better insofar as early childhood education, and we would absolutely clear up a ton of space between September and June for people looking for a childcare space. And again, coming from an operator of one of these facilities, the wait lists are long, the spaces are few. So I understand your frustration if you're looking for a childcare space, but they can't just make one out of thin air. So the frustration, let's try to keep it as even keeled as possible, because some of these operators, they say that some of the interactions are really quite testy. And I get why people get testy or frustrated or angry, whatever the right label is. But yeah, let's go. All right, a couple more. How are we doing out there, Dave? Let's see if I can pick this piece of paper up. Inflation numbers are out for June. 1.9% when compared to 1.7% the month prior. There's a bunch of different implications here regarding passenger vehicle sales are actually up 4.1% year over year. Then, of course, for the most of us, the real concern is in the grocery store. Prices rose 2.8% after rising 3.3% the month prior. So apparently some cooling there, some price decreases, which I actually noticed. Not dramatic, but insofar as fresh fruits and vegetables. And that's a nationwide issue. We can always talk about the quality and selection of fruits and vegetables in the grocery stores here, which sometimes is highly questionable at still significant prices. But inflation, 1.9%, and that's changed from 1.7% the month prior. Anyway, you can't eat inflation, but it's always a interesting consumer price index look at where we are. All right, National Front. So apparently now the Prime Minister has said that any eventual trade deal with the United States may indeed include tariffs. Apparently there is no roadmap towards a resumption of previously negotiated trade agreements between our country, the United States, and Mexico. So there's a significant amount of goods that are not compliant with the old trade deal. And of course, using national security, not as an actual national security issue, but as a loophole to justify these tariffs is out of control. So what do we do? You know, people talk about, and I hate political catchphrases, I find them tedious and boring, but the whole elbows up business. Look, you know, border investment's important. Dealing with fentanyl and the flow of criminal activity, yes, I get all of that stuff, but that wasn't enough. Digital service tax gone away, not good enough. So I don't know where we go, but everything we can possibly do at the federal government level, of which you and I have no control over, to find markets for our goods and services, toot sweet, is going to be extremely important. I don't know where people's minds are these days on the buy local. You know, one of the surefire things that we can do as consumers is to do our level best. And it's not necessarily possible with every single product that you need to operate your day-to-day lives, but to check the label. You know, made in Canada versus a product of Canada, there's a variance, there's a difference between the two. But one thing, if you are a frustrated Canadian taxpayer with these types of issues, buying Canadian is probably an excellent idea. Again, you do as you see fit with your hard-earned money. If it's buying a product of China from Walmart, fill your boots. But for those out there who, you know, maybe it was all the rage there for a week or two and maybe has waned, but if you can find a replacement for it, whether it was made in America or anywhere else, and something that can be made domestically, which can be confusing, because you can have a product that you recognize it as, say, for instance, an American-based company, but it may indeed have factories or plants in this country employing Canadians at the same time. So I don't mean to complicate your shopping trip here today, but there are various online tools that can help you understand, you know, where a product is from, and the contents or the ingredients, whether or not they're Canadian, how many people might be employed in the country, even if it's a well-known American company or a company from the UK or whatever the case may be. But I wonder where people's heads are on that buy Canadian, because that was, like I said, all the rage there for a little bit. But anyway, someone in the queue wants to talk about federal spending reductions. It's an interesting exercise. So we're told that the federal government departments have to find reduction in spending to the tune of around 7.5%. Some people refer to it as austerity targets. Let's just call them, you know, hopeful savings. Even with that said, if all of those targets are hit, the federal government operations will still cost 22% more than they did just 6 years ago. Now, I understand that everything's more expensive and salaries have increased, but if their savings can be achieved, still 22% higher than 6 years ago to operate the federal government. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting one. All right, very quickly, this is a total townie quip. So 18 years ago today, the White Stripes, they were in town to play a concert down that was then Mile 1. And there was rumors going around that they were going to perform live somewhere in the city that afternoon. People were chasing it around, trying to figure it out. Eventually, it was on the stage on George Street. So Jack White and his then wife, Meg, the drummer, they came out on stage and played one note, one C note, accompanied with a cymbal crash from the drummer, that's Meg. And then they said after that, we have now officially played in every province and territory in Canada. And of course, later took the stage, played a full show at Mile 1. But 18 years ago today, I was there. The only reason I was there is I was working on a summer show on Rogers TV, and that was one of the assignments I was given, is to find that and get some tape to play in the show that evening. I think the show was called Summer Breeze. I can't understand why I can't really fully remember that. I wasn't a full-time host on that show, but we were there. And the place was absolutely jammed. One note, and then they walked off the stage. It was the shortest live show ever in this city. All right, we're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. But my favorite and yours is when you pick up the phone to get in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's see here. We reached out to our buddy Rob Strong on line 4, and he kicks off the program this morning. Morning, Rob. You're on the air.
Hey, Patty. Good morning to you. How you doing?
Excellent today. Thanks. How you doing?
Oh, good. Hump day. So maybe the sunshine will continue all week.
Yeah, let's hope so. It's sure been hot.
I don't call it hump day anymore.
Yeah, no kidding.
Patty, a couple of things,
sure.
if I may. One is, as we heard yesterday or the day before, Steve Crocker is not going to be running again. And that for those of us in the oil and gas business is not good news. And the reason it's not, Patty, is that we desperately need a permanent presence as Minister of Industry, Energy, and Technology. Andrew Parsons was there for several years, was an excellent minister because he knew the department and he knew the industry. Steve Crocker replaced Andrew when he left, and we were encouraged that a new minister, and he's going to be there for a year or two or a couple of years, and that would help us in the industry and generally in business. And I'm thinking of sort of the outstanding files that must be on that minister's desk, because he won't be minister after, when is the election, October?
It has to be on or before the 14th of October.
Yeah, so whoever gets elected, whether it's a Liberal or whether it's Conservative, the new minister has to face, and I'll list off a few if I may. Firstly, there's the Bay to Nord Benefits Agreement. Secondly, the development of gas offshore is something close to your heart because you'll follow that quite closely. And as you know, the province announced that we had 10 trillion cubic feet of gas. Then there's doing something about offshore wind. That's been quiet, but that's on the minister's file. Obviously, the conclusion of the Lower Churchill Agreement is pretty important. Interprovincial trade is a big issue these days. We need to attract new industries, new entries into the offshore. And then, of course, the story that's breaking recently is about Bull Arm and how we're going to position Bull Arm. If the feds are very serious about building 12 new submarines, Bull Arm would be a great facility for maintaining those submarines. And then, of course, there's the whole wind energy business, wind to electricity, to hydrogen, to ammonia, and exporting it. So here we have now, we're going to have a lame duck, with due respect, and in the context that I'm saying. The new minister comes in. These are all the issues he's going to have to face. And, of course, there's a dozen more. So I don't know what the solution is, but I'll tell you that if I was in politics, which I certainly am not and will not ever, but if I was in there, I would be intimidated by the issues that are being faced, and these are important issues for Newfoundland. I mean, concluding the Churchill Falls Agreement, for instance, that's pretty important. There's big dollars on the table. And I go back to Bay to Nord and concluding a benefits agreement there. How much work is going to be required? So that's going to be an interesting position. It's going to be interesting to see who fills it. And they got big shoes to fill after Andrew Parsons. Unfortunately, Steve Crocker wasn't there long enough, at least in my opinion, wasn't there long enough to get a good understanding of all these issues.
It's a massive portfolio, to say the very least. Did you mention the natural gas royalty regime?
No, there you go. There's another. Well, I guess I did when I said moving the development of gas along, but that's another one. If indeed we can develop it, that's another question.
Yeah, which of course may indeed be out of the crosshairs of a government minister, but I wonder where the companies are. I've long thought that, if they can make a buck, they're going to go at it. Now, whether it be with, liquefying it offshore or pipelining it to the island, I have no earthly idea what the optimal play will be, but no one's going to do a whole lot of work in-house until there's a royalty regime, until they understand exactly what the price per MMBTU, how that translates to profit.
And the question I have is, who owns the gas? Is it the operators, or is it us as government, or us as the people?
It's a good question.
I don't know.
I would imagine inside the land lease itself that whatever hydrocarbons are below the FPSO or below the rig belong to the operator, I would think, but that's an interesting question.
And how do you get the operators to combine the 10 trillion cubic feet they talk about is spread over several different fields.
Yeah.
And so what happens if Exxon wants to do it and Suncor doesn't want to do it? How do you what we call it, unitize it, sort of thing? So there's lots of issues to be faced there, and if we're going to be in the gas business, this new minister is going to have to address all these issues. So it's going to be quite an interesting position. No
question. And inside the world, look, you're in the industry, I'm not, but for the most part, from the outside looking in, the operator themselves, they can't call the shots. The other partners are, of course, they'll have a say, especially when they have significant equity positions in one oil field or another, or one gas field or another. But the operator themselves, they play the tune.
You're exactly correct. But as you know, and I guess your listening audience know as well, there's in any oil field, there's never one oil company or one operator. We call them operators, but any one oil company that owns it. So, for instance, in the case of Hibernia, there's Exxon, there's Suncor, there's Equinor, there's the Province, and there's Murphy, and there's about 5 or 6. And what happens if one of those doesn't want to play in the world of gas? So lots of issues that have to be resolved internally within the operating group, and then have to be. And the other question, as you point out, is the whole royalty regime. All industry wants certainty. They want to know what the rules of the game are. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And if and when we're going to get a new minister. I just hope that he or she has got some industrial background to tackle some of these issues.
Yeah, there's also, the rules of the game is a moving target. Whether it be with provincial jurisdiction and, in addition to that, federal jurisdiction, because things are seemingly changing there as well. Now, over the course of the summer, I guess we'll find out a bit more about what constitutes a nation's best interest, pipeline project, transmission project, oil and gas play, hydroelectricity. We don't really know what the rules are these days.
No, and with just the passing of Bill C-5, it seems to be, the Carney government seems to be aggressive, but still there's a lot of details left to be known. You brought up a good point the other day last time we spoke about Equinor and the potential role that the feds might play in helping out with the royalty regime that's applicable for developments outside the 200-mile limits. We're talking the Law of the Sea Convention of whatever year it was. And as we know, anything outside the 200-mile limit is subject to, I think it starts off as 2% and goes to 7% of the value of the resource. So that's got to be factored into development, which leads me into Beta Nord.
Okay.
Interesting story in Energy NL's daily bulletin, or they call it the Conduit, which is always a good source of information. But an interesting story in 2 days ago, I guess, in that bulletin, which talks about the potential sale of Altera. Now, Altera, for, again, those that don't follow it closely as you and I, Altera is one of 2 bidders for the FEED, front-end engineering and design, the FEED stage of Beta Nord. And the gist of this story was that Altera, which ironically is owned by Brookfield Business Partners, which is the company that Carney used to work for, but Altera is owned by Brookfield, and Brookfield have been disposing of components of it. They've sold their shuttle tankers that operate offshore Newfoundland. Used to be owned by TK, and then when Brookfield invested in Altera, they renamed the tankers. But the tankers have been sold to a Greek company for $1.9 billion, which raised a lot of money for Brookfield. Brookfield wants to dispose of Altera. So if they can find a buyer for Altera's FPSO fleet, where does that put Beta Nord? You're down to one company, single source, and no oil company or any company really likes to single source for a contract that big. So that's going to be interesting because Altera is already doing work for Equinor on a development in the North Sea called Rosebank, and I guess that was why they were shortlisted. But now, as I say, if Altera gets sold, how does Equinor handle that? That's a good question, and I probably think that they don't know what they're going to do at this stage because there are other companies that are potentially bidders, but the pre-qualification process is finished, so I just flagged that as an interesting item that's going to be in the news the next little while. Should Brookfield sell Altera's FPSOs? I think they have 4 or 5 FPSOs right now, so it's just not their equity or their position in Beta Nord that's of interest. I'm sure it's the other 3 or 4 FPSOs that they got. So that's one worth watching. Yeah,
doesn't Petrobras have a piece of that company?
No.
Okay.
Altera has a joint venture supplying FPSOs to Petrobras.
Okay.
And but Petrobras owns their own fleet of FPSOs. I think they got 7 or 8. I think they're probably one of the biggest from an operator perspective, from an oil company perspective. Petrobras has more FPSOs than any other in the other oil company. You know, in some cases, oil companies choose to own their own FPSOs, and in some cases, as in the case of Beta Nord, which was announced recently, they're going to farm out the ownership and operation of the FPSO. So it depends upon the particular philosophy that each oil company has. Some, as I say, want to own and operate, and some want to lease it. So, and the feeling that, or at least Equinor has announced, as far as Beta Nord goes, they will not own the FPSO. It'll be a third party, and it was going to be either Altera or BW. BW being a Norwegian company, and Altera is headquartered in Aberdeen. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But as I say, I go back to Beta Nord for a minute. The benefits agreement. What happens to that if we don't have a minister? And let's face it, ministers are going to be out campaigning for the next 2 months. So all these issues I raised earlier are I hope, not going to be put in the back burner because they're too important.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to be a minister sitting in that chair for a long time on that portfolio to have a firm grasp. I would suggest the vast majority of the information and decision-making as well, probably in the hands and the minds of the senior bureaucrats. But of course, the face of the department has got to be absolutely, completely in full understanding of all the moving parts, of which there are many. And when we talk about that portfolio. Rob, always good to have you on the show. Appreciate your time.
Take care, Paddy.
You too, Rob. All the
Bye-bye.
best. All right, bye-bye. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the Liberal member for Placentia St. Mary's, the Minister responsible for women and gender equality. That's Sherry Gambin-Walsh. Minister Gambin-Walsh, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you today?
Great today. How about you?
I'm good. Last week, I was in Yellowknife from July 14th to the 17th, and I attended a federal, provincial, territorial meeting for the Department of Women and Gender Equality. And for those who are listening and don't know, that's a meeting where everyone across Canada in my position, along with the federal minister, with Minister Valdez right now, we came together. And we came together to discuss issues and concerns for women and persons and gender equality. And in that discussion, each province, we talked about what is working in each province and what we need to do and what we can do as a country. So I must say, like in December of 2023, our government formed a bilateral agreement with the federal government for nearly $13.6 million to go over 4 years. And we're a year and a half into that spending right now. And, I'm a new minister in this department, came in May. And what I need to say for the people of the province is that, what I see our government doing is working with the community groups on the ground. And, yes, we have some bumps and, scars along the way as we try to work through this very, very important topic.
But what is the topic? I don't think we've actually even described what topic we're actually talking about. Is it intimate partner violence or...?
Well, that's one. Intimate partner violence is one of the top topics in this province specifically. Each province has some different issues and concerns. Some provinces are focused on educating men and boys about gender equality. And this province here particularly, we're working with the community groups, and there's a vast number of community groups in this province. We have, I'll just give you an example of things we're doing. We're supporting the women's shelters. We're supporting the crisis hotlines. We're supporting Quadrangle. There's the Public Legal Information Association, PLIAN. We have a project with them. We're also supporting the Provincial Indigenous Women's Reconciliation Council. The violence prevention funding. In violence prevention funding itself, our government, there's the St. John's Status of Women's Council, the Corner Brook Status of Women's Council, Bjorn Peninsula, Voices Against Violence. There's Thrive. There's the Multicultural Women's Organization. There's Seniors NL. There's within all these groups, and Violence Prevention South Central. I can go on here. Planned Parenthood. So within all these groups, there is some different pots of funding that that have come out from this bilateral agreement to each of these groups. And our staff in the department work with these groups, and these groups deliver the programs on the ground in the community. And I think that's the way to go, because I come from community myself, working in the disability community, and I believe that these groups are closest to the problem and closest to the scenario. And the situation, yes, it's intimate partner violence, but also like with Quadrangle, it's gender-based, it's violence against persons, the community. So with Quadrangle, just using for an example, because we do have the Pride Parade coming up, $890,000 in funding to Quadrangle was provided for 4 years to enhance violence prevention efforts, and it includes education and awareness initiatives. And I met with the group there not too long ago. So the funding is going to increase the capacity and provincial outreach and service delivery. So they do it better than we do it, as a government. They do this work better on the ground. So that was the discussion that was being had. But intimate partner violence, I just want to focus on that just for a couple of minutes. I did meet with some people around this topic since I came in, and this is the topic that is I'm focused on as a minister. So we do have the ministerial committee. The previous minister set that up. But when I met with some people from the community, what they want to do is they want to have a committee where they can come and advise this ministerial committee. And I agree with that. I think that's very important. And I think we need to go through the Independent Appointments Commission and set up that committee, because I have been in a ministerial role before with persons with disabilities and seniors where we have committees that advise me as a minister. And I think that is definitely something that is needed, because that's directly right into the minister.
Right.
So, that's something I will be doing.
I'd like to jump in on one issue there. So this will not prevent instances of intimate partner violence, which is obviously the goal, but advocates are quite clear on this, and let's talk about, enhancing or expanding the ankle bracelet monitoring program. It was promised by the government to be implemented by June of last year, but it has not come. So whether we talk about people who are accused of serious crimes, repeat intimate partner violence criminals, and so they'd be forced to wear an ankle monitoring bracelet. People will tell me, well, that's guilty, you're not proven guilty, but it's a condition of bail. So where are we on that program? Because that will indeed offer a different level of comfort to people who are on the receiving end.
So that's with the Minister of Justice and Public Safety. I'm very supportive of that. My understanding is it is forthcoming. Where exactly it is, I can't give you a timeline right now, but I can certainly promise to get an update from the Minister of Justice and Public Safety. I think that is an excellent program, and there are some provinces across Canada that are using it, and I think it is needed. And I understand, innocence until proven guilty, but there is enough evidence and data here to prove that that type of program will help and possibly save lives. And you have Clear as Law also that's in effect, and that's another really good program. So all these programs together will save lives. And I am very supportive of the bracelet.
It just makes sense, and I know that's a Department of Justice issue specifically, but of course your department would have to work with the Department of Education, Health and Community Services, the Department of Justice, the Seniors Department. I can't even remember what that actual title is these days. So that's why I asked. I know it's not necessarily your ministerial bailiwick, but it's part of the work that you'd be doing. You look at the court docket, and somewhere, maybe 35, 40% is domestic violence.
It's too much. Way too much is domestic violence. And our objective and goal here is to try to get it out into the public and to talk about it, because people still don't want to talk about it. But if anyone who's listened to this call this morning that's in their late 70s or 80s, they understand that years ago, domestic violence was something that you did not talk about. It was something that was supposed to be personal and within a family, and it was taboo, and people were really ashamed of it. But our objective and goal here is to get people to talk about it so we can truly and honestly identify how high it is. Now, we know it's high. We see incidents, we see some homicides in the province, and our objective and goal is to prevent it. And we know we're not going to prevent it overnight, but we do know that these things like Clear as Law and, as we just spoke about, the bracelet can save lives. So yes, very important.
No question. I appreciate the time, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Sherry Gamble-Walsh, the Minister responsible for women and gender equality. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're talking federal spending, and then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, Terry. You're on the air.
Good morning. How you doing this morning, Patty?
I'm very well. How about you?
Oh, not too bad at all. Patty, I know you were talking earlier this morning about the price of groceries fluctuating up and down and what have you. I'm just wondering how many of those companies actually do a reading of the groceries that actually go through the self-serve checkouts.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
Well, I know a lot of them are mandated. There's people looking at customers as they go through.
Yeah.
But I had an incident the other day. It's about a week and a half ago, and this is what prompted me to call this morning. I was going to before this, but I never did. I was actually in the lineup, and I saw this particular customer come in, and she had about 15 cases of 6x750 ml pop in her case, in her basket. She went through the self-serve checkout, and Patty, I couldn't believe it. I was actually looking at it. She scanned 4 of them. She paid $20.63, and out the door she goes.
I'm sure that happens. I mean, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And for me, when I hear retailers complain about the amount of shoplifting or theft that happens because of self-checkouts, I say, cry me a river. I mean, if you were that concerned about it, you'd have everyone go through a till that's operated by a human being.
Exactly. At least have someone man the register, the checkouts there. And I'm not going to mention the store, but I even called the manager myself, and they said they will look into it. I gave them the approximate time I was in the store. I gave them my number, never did hear back from them. And they told me that the person that's on the number 1 checkout there is actually supposed to be manning that also. But Pat, I was like in the supermarkets, you're doing checking in the customer's groceries. You don't have time to scan over to see what the person is doing at self-checkout.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like the staffer is there basically to be of assistance. Like, for instance, if you don't know the code for celery and you don't want to go typing in celery to try to come up with it so you can lay it on the scale, that kind of feels like what they're doing, as opposed to ensuring, as best they can, that people are actually scanning all their items. Now, it's also important to note that you do not have to, if you're leaving the store and someone tries to stop you, unless it's part of terms of service. Like, for instance, when I go to Costco, I've got to go past that last person who looks at my bill and signs off on it, and I'm allowed to leave. But if I'm just walking out of the drugstore or the grocery store, I don't have to stop unless they have some sort of proof that I shoplift. I can just keep going.
Yeah, I know. Just like this particular customer, she kept on going, and as she's going out the door, she gave a glance back, and I just looked at her, and she looked at me, and just went on. And I mentioned to the person that was at the checkout that checked me out, and basically they just looked at me and smiled. It's not the first time, so. It's too bad, but unfortunately, it's the customer ourselves, people ourselves, are actually paying for this. And
I try to avoid going to the self-checkout for a variety of reasons. Number one, I think it's really just a cost-saving measure by the company. It's no real efficiency for me. Plus, I don't work for you. That's part of the stuff that I should not have to do when I go to the store, is to do my own checkout. Maybe that's just on principle as opposed to anything realistic. In addition to that, I've said this before just to be told I'm crazy, but if we had a human being working at the checkout versus the machine, that human being gets paid and pays taxes. Maybe there should be some sort of fee for the companies to pay into government revenue because they're not paying tax on that machine. So that would be a human being that's paying taxes. So I think there's something to that as well, to be honest.
That's correct. And when it really goes back to, Patty, is customer service.
Sure.
You walk up to a checkout, you talk to the person that's at the checkout. There's some counteraction there between yourself and them. And the self-serve, I never do go to them either. And it just irks me sometimes to see what people do and get away with it. And anyway, we all wonder why groceries are going up in some cases, but I'm sure some of those bigger companies had a look at what's actually going out the door, and they'd probably change their minds and not blame it on the gas or this and that or all the time. But anyway, that was my beef this morning, Patty. And just, like I say, it's not going to change. I just brought it up there, but nothing's going to change with that anyway.
Probably not. People are quick to pull off the old 5-finger discount if they think they can get away with it.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad.
It is. It impacts all of us because they get that lost revenue back from us.
Yeah.
We all pay for it. I appreciate this, Terry.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, again, if that suits your shopping habits and you go to self-checkout, fair enough. But for the retailers who complain about theft has increased since they started to impose self-checkouts, that's on you. You know, you can have security there. You can have your own staff there. You can have more tills operated by human beings that you've hired and trained. So, yeah, I know the theft numbers are up, but what do you want me to do about it? Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Caller, you're on the air. Caller on line number 2. Dave, is that pot up by chance? The caller,
Hello?
line number 2.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
I'm okay. How about you?
I'm in a hard predicament.
What's happening?
So just recently, my husband's taken off of work. I'm the only income that's coming into the house right now. I got until this evening to have the rent over for July month. If I don't have, and it's only till tomorrow morning, I get paid. And the owner of the property is just not answering phone calls or willing to, and this is the first notice given. And I can't find my way out. I've been picking at straws of all opportunity of knowing what to do. And it's just, I'm at a stepping stone right now where it's, like I got the money for rent tomorrow, aside from only having $50 of that left over for 2 weeks. And I'm just at a blind spot. I don't know what to do.
So let me get this straight. You're going to be 1 day late with the rent and you're going to be evicted as a result? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's a pretty cold heart.
Yeah, and I have got no way of communication for that. I got one number, but there's no picking up, no answering, no response back, no nothing.
So, when's the last time you spoke with your landlord?
Yesterday.
And
it's not the landlord directly.
okay, and so whoever, the property management company or the landlord, whoever that might be, they simply said, if you're 1 day late, you're out.
That's correct.
So I'm assuming that means
I get it. Like the rent is supposed to be paid on the first of the month. I get that. Was I ever late before? No. It's just I just need time. I'm buying time, and I'm picking at straws of trying to buy time, and I haven't got no help. And so I'm just wondering what to do. How can I get those funds to this, to make sure that termination is voided?
I really don't know what you can do in the next 12 hours. I really don't know. So what do you really need here? Other than a bit of lenience from your landlord, what do you need?
A miracle.
Yeah.
A miracle, Patty. I'm the only income right now, and I just need a miracle. There's only so many hours in the day that I could work. I'm trying to provide a home. I'm trying to provide sick leave for my husband. I'm trying to provide a healthy spot and a happy spot of home for my children, and it's all coming down around my ears.
How much is your rent?
$22.
$2,200.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's pretty hefty. Well, the best I can say is
I provided documents, Patty. I provided documents, letters, emails, everything. The only thing I can't do is give my soul. And it takes a lot of pride to get out in the open air. I've fought petitions for and homelessness. I've done petitionary work. I've been doing volunteer work. I've been doing petitions for government to just change this housing crisis. And meanwhile I was able to smile because I was thanking God I had a roof over my head. And now I'm on the flip side of it.
Well, and I'm really sorry to hear it. And don't be embarrassed, because anybody can fall on hard times. That's just the facts of the matter. So if anybody here listening to this program knows anything about the ability to help or something they can do to assist you and your family, we'll try to connect you. So if anyone contacts me, can I share your phone number?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see what we can come up with. I appreciate your time, and I wish you good luck.
I just wish that any level of government, that if you're listening, this got to change. If a person like myself is making a good income and you're paying this amount of rent, why can't it be exemption for a mortgage of some way with stipulations? Of owning a home and renting out a basement apartment, say, to offset the cost of mortgage. I know it takes a lot, especially if you don't have a correct credit score, or if you don't have the down payment, or, everybody in this city, in this province, should have some form of housing. We should not have to live on the street.
Of course, and I agree with that. And I'm going to see if I can't get you some help here this morning. And I do have your number, and let's see if we can't help figure it out. I can't make any promises, but I'll see what we can possibly do for you. And I wish you good luck. Stay in touch.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, interprovincial trade, collaborative care, talk about an upcoming folk fest, where we'll find out. And the new president at the Atlantic Salmon Federation is Nathan Wilbur. He's in the queue as well. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 6 to say good morning to the new president at the Atlantic Salmon Federation. That's Nathan Wilbur. Nathan, you're on the air.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm very happy to be here.
Happy to have you on the program. So you're in the news every now and then, and specifically when it comes to the Aquaculture Industry Association. Keith Sullivan, the executive director at the association, says that your group is purposely putting out disinformation regarding aquaculture and the cleanliness of sites and discarding old nets and plastic, what have you. What do you say to those allegations from Mr. Sullivan?
Well, I would say I would urge the listeners to simply watch the documentary that we created, which is called Rock Plastic Salmon, and it's available on YouTube, and the public can decide for themselves about what the industry is doing. We've got incredible imagery of industrial scale plastic dumping along Newfoundland's south coast, and we just did a big film tour around Newfoundland in conjunction with local partners, and showing this documentary. And the public in Newfoundland was moved by this film. Some people were in tears watching this, to see their coastline treated like this. And so, the imagery in the video speaks for itself. It's not misinformation.
So, I hate speaking for somebody else, but he's been on this show saying exactly this. He says some of these things are taken out of context when it comes to timelines for when things are actually cleaned up, as opposed to the insinuation that it's there for extended times. It's there past the regulations that are written about cleanups and what have you. So that's what he will say, and your reaction to that?
My reaction is that when you have a 10-inch diameter birch tree growing up through an old discarded cage along the shoreline, that's not temporary storage. That's been there for a while. And we've partnered with a UK-based satellite imagery firm called Planetix, and we're analyzing all of these fjords along the south coast of Newfoundland. And what we're finding is that some of these cages have been there for decades. And some come and go, and some are cleaned up, and then more are put back. But it's like the Tim Horton coffee cup analogy, which I love. And it's, if I throw my Tim Hortons coffee cup out the window in the ditch and get pulled over and tell the officer I'm just keeping it there for a little while, that's not an acceptable answer, and it's not acceptable for the industry to be putting their garbage out in these pristine fjords for years and years and years. That's just not acceptable to the public.
What do you get insofar as reaction goes, from the government? Who is the regulator here?
Well, the regulator is the province and and the federal government, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, who interestingly just recently came out and said that they've determined that this major plastic garbage in the ocean is not impacting fish and fish habitat. And I think that the public would have, in Newfoundland and Labrador, and certainly Canada-wide, would have a difficult time digesting that the public agency federally, who is responsible for protecting fish and fish habitat, is okay with industrial-scale plastic pollution in the marine environment. It doesn't seem to sit well with us, and I don't imagine it does with the public either.
Are you in this province, Nathan? Where are you?
So sorry, I missed your question.
I'm just wondering, are you from this province? Are you here? I'm just curious as to your background.
My background, so I grew up in a small town in rural New Brunswick,
okay,
and I've been with the Atlantic Salmon Federation for 10 years, and my background is in engineering and river restoration, and I've worked in the salmon community for the better part of 15 years or so, and my role at ASF over the past 10 years has been to work across the Federation. And the Federation is a broad network of organizations in Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Prince Edward Island, and Maine, and all through salmon country in eastern North America, essentially. And we work closely with the Regional Salmon Council in each province and the state of Maine, and then also affiliated with all sorts of local watershed groups. So it's a true federation in that sense, and the Salmonid Council of Newfoundland and Labrador is our close partner in Newfoundland, along with the local watershed associations. So we've got a full-time staff member, Kim Thompson, in Newfoundland and Labrador. She's from the island, born and bred, and so we're a distributed organization. We have staff in all provinces.
Have you been to any of the aquaculture sites in this province by chance, Nathan? I haven't. I have not personally. We've had many team members who have, especially in the last few months, documenting the plastics since last summer, essentially. Just out of curiosity, you mentioned Maine and other parts of Atlantic Canada and the province of Quebec. We have certain rivers here that have, we do salmon count on returning salmon each year. And for the most part, the count numbers are down. There's a couple of rivers that remain quite strong. What's it like, for instance, in Maine?
Yeah, so what we're seeing this year across the board is improved numbers of grilse returns. One fish that has spent one winter at sea, and it's a relief, frankly, because the last 2 years have been really poor grilse numbers, and so in Maine in particular, our focus has been on taking out dams, opening up habitat that was previously cut off by industrial activity, human development. We're trying to reverse that and open up habitat, good cold water, climate resilient habitat. And we're seeing that work pay off now. The Penobscot, for example, has had a recovery of the alewife population, so the sea-run alewives, from essentially nothing to 5 million in the past 10 years, and the salmon are following that. They're, of course, slower to respond. They have a more complex life cycle, but we're seeing improvements on the Penobscot, and we're really, really encouraged by that.
Last one before I let you go. Where is the ASF on whether people call it catch and release or hook and release? Because it's pretty common practice here for anglers in this province. And where's the ASF on that topic, and what are you using for mortality rates?
Yeah, our position on that is that we respect the long and rich culture in Newfoundland and Labrador of salmon fishing and of being able to retain salmon when stocks are healthy enough to be able to withstand that. The real importance for ASF here is that there's a strong community of people who care about salmon. That's a really, really critical part of salmon conservation in general. So we want to see everybody behind this movement to help conserve and protect Atlantic salmon and their habitat, and that includes people who harvest grills to eat.
So I hear floating numbers. You know that 80% perish after being hooked and released. And, it's all about how you play the fish, how long it's out of the water, for pictures and the rest. So do you have a number that you're using for mortality?
Yeah, we follow the science on that, and there have been dozens and dozens of studies done from Norway to Newfoundland to New Brunswick, and they've got varied mortality rates, but the general consensus is that mortality is somewhere, less than 10%, as long as the temperature is cold enough. So as the water temperature increases, and particularly above 20 degrees, mortality increases. But when it's below 18, 20 degrees, mortality is very low in hook and release, and it's a conservation measure to have people out there on the water participating in the fishery, hooking and releasing fish.
I appreciate the time this morning, Nathan. Thanks for doing it.
Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to getting started.
Take good care and good luck.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That's Nathan Wilbur, the new president of the Atlantic Salmon Federation. For the caller regarding 1 day late with the rent and going to be evicted and stuff, she's not. I mean, we'll give her direct contact for someone who can help with some of the information, but you have to be late by no less than 5 days, and then you need another 10 to be given notice of eviction. So she's not getting kicked out for being 1 day late. And hopefully, if you're listening, just make sure that you can put that information in front of your landlord, because they are not legally allowed to kick you out tomorrow. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Kitty. You're on the air.
Oh, hi. Good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
I couldn't be better. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing really great. It's my first time calling, so I might be a little bit nervous. But anyway, I wanted to call, and I just had to call. I listen to your program every morning, and this program is so important to the province with all the issues and everything that's going on with the province, especially in healthcare. And I just want to give accolades to the collaborative Clear Clinic that I'm a part of now.
Okay.
Because they were fantastic, really fantastic. Anyway, I need to go back a little bit and give you a little tiny bit of my backstory. I'm a breast cancer patient since 2010. And I went through all the treatments back then, and I was great. And, I was in remission, and, they couldn't find any more cancer cells at that time. Everything was great. And then I'm going to fast forward to 2019. So 2019, I was misdiagnosed by my family doctor at the time for an illness that it ended up that I didn't have. So I was being treated by my family doctor for months, actually, for this illness. And finally, after I'd say 6 or 8 months of telling my family doctor that, this is not what's wrong with me, I was sent for an MRI, and they discovered that the breast cancer that I had has metastasized. Now I'm a stage 4 breast cancer patient that's metastasized to my bone. So I had to go back to the cancer clinic and start treatment and everything all over again. And I had to say, right now I'm doing fabulous. I can't say enough about the cancer clinic. Once you get in there, the doctors and all the people and everybody that registers you, everybody is fantastic in there. So anyway, I'd say about maybe 8 or 10 months after my diagnosis, my doctor decided to close her practice, and I didn't have a family doctor. So I signed up for the online service, because I needed a family doctor. I have a fantastic oncology team, but if I have any general issues or anything, they can't help me with those. So I don't know, I guess maybe after another 6 or 7 months, I get placed with a nurse practitioner at one of the collaborative care clinics. And I was a little bit hesitant first because, I had a doctor, and even though she misdiagnosed me, I said, well, oh my God, a nurse practitioner. But anyway, I went to her, and she's been fantastic. And I can just say that she's I feel more secure, more comfortable with her than I did with my family doctor. So this past week, I had an incident. About a month ago, I had an incident. I was out in the Buena Vista area kayaking, and I accidentally fell in a ditch by accident, and I hurt my foot. And anyway, I got home after that, and it had swollen up, and there was a little lump there, and I said, oh, that's probably just a little sprain or whatever. So I let it go for a couple of weeks. And the swelling went down, but there was still a big lump there, and it felt a little bit like a bone. It was really like, bony type lump. So I called down to the collaborative care clinic, and, I explained trying to get in to see my nurse practitioner, but she was booked up till almost the end of July. And so I said to the lady, I said, oh, my God, I said, I can't wait that long for an appointment. I said, and I really don't want to go over and spend 24 hours over an emergency, to get an x-ray to see, what's going on with my foot, especially where I'm a metastatic bone cancer patient. So anyway, she said, just give me a second. And she came back, and she said, the physiotherapist has an opening. So she said, tomorrow morning. That was a couple of days ago. Tomorrow morning. And she said, you can come in and see her, and she can look at your leg and diagnose it, and maybe that'll help. Now, she can't write a slip for you to have a x-ray done, but she said she can forward it on to your nurse practitioner, and she can look at it and then determine if I needed an x-ray. So I said, okay, fair enough, that's good. I have to get this checked out. So I go down the next day, go in and see the physiotherapist, who was absolutely fabulous, by the way, and she assessed my leg, my foot, and she felt the big bony lump there, and sure enough, she said, I'm really not sure if that's just a little break in one of the bones there, or if it's just a sprain. Okay. But, she said, I'll pass all this information over to your nurse practitioner, and, she'll get in touch with you. So
what was the end result of all of this?
Okay. Yeah, well, I came home, and I was home maybe an hour, and my nurse practitioner called me and said, I'll give you a slip, and you can go and get your x-ray. And so I did that. I went on and had the x-ray, and the next day I had the results of it, and it was just a bad sprain, thank God. It wasn't a bone broke.
Good news.
But I just want to say, people that, don't have a doctor and, need care, I can tell you that a nurse practitioner is almost just as good as a doctor. I feel more confident with her than I did with my doctor.
It's the good news. Look, not everything in the healthcare system is awful. I mean, people don't like to hear that. They like to think that it's completely in 100% disarray, but there's tons of good people working in it, compassionate, well experienced, well trained, dedicated, nurse practitioners and otherwise. I had to deal with a nurse practitioner there a few years ago via the emergency room at the health sciences. She was absolutely terrific. Extremely competent and absolutely caring, gave me the best type of treatment, and I was really quite pleased. Which I'll end off with this, and I'll give you the last few seconds. Let's make the province ensure that nurse practitioners can work on their own and bill MCP. Let's just do that, because if we're trying to take the pressure off, like with this new ambulatory hub in the old Costco building, to take pressures off the emergency rooms, and people having to, go for non-emergencies to go to emergency, or to even go to a collaborative care clinic and maybe see a family doctor when all they need, they can be absolutely satisfied with a licensed practical nurse or with a nurse practitioner or whatever the case may be. So I'm glad that was your experience, and I hope you're doing okay, Kitty.
Actually, I'm doing really, really well.
That's
My
great.
treatments are working fabulously, and I'm out and about. I'm doing everything, and everything is keeping me at bay. So I'm doing really, really well. But, in these times of where we have so much negativity with our healthcare system, I know it is, and, people are a little bit uneasy about these collaborative clinics. But I can tell you, I've had nothing but a positive experience with them, and I'll continue. I really don't want to really continue looking for a doctor. I think the nurse practitioner I have will suffice for me. I think she'll be fabulous.
And I'm really pleased to hear that.
And not only that, one more thing I want to say is the physiotherapist there, after we discussed my foot and everything, and then she said, do you know that we have some programs on the go here that you can access for free, through MCP? And I said, oh, my God, no. She said, there's all kinds of 6-week, 2-week, 4-week, some online programs that the collaborative care clinics are doing that people, patients of the collaborative care clinics can sign up for, and some things like mindfulness and balance, if you're having trouble with balance, healthy aging. There's all different kinds of little programs. They might be 2 weeks. They might go run for 6 weeks, and I said, no, I didn't know that was on the go. Anyway, she printed off the list for me, and now where I do have the bone cancer and everything, I'm going to sign up for the balance.
Good for you.
The 6-week balance course.
Kitty, I appreciate your time as a first-time caller. Stay in touch, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Patty. You're fabulous. Keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing a fantastic job, and I really love listening to you every morning.
I appreciate that very much. Stay in touch.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye, Kitty. I think it's break time. When we come back in a provincial trade, don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Todd Perrin is running for council spot in Ward 2 here in the city of St. John's, and he joins us on line number 1. Good morning, Todd. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How are you doing this morning?
Great today. You?
Excellent. Wanted to pick up on the conversation around interprovincial trade that you've been having on your show there, and it's been in the news a bit again. And with the most recent news story last week that, where the Newfoundland and Labrador government has decided to persist in remaining outside of the coming agreements on interprovincial trade of alcohol, and kind of, the confusion that some of us have around what it is that is causing the government to do this. When the interprovincial conversation started happening, when Trump got inaugurated, our government was very much, we're Team Canada, we're here, we're at the table, we're involved. And then the very first tangible thing that came across the desk, they were like, oh, no, we can't do that. And the only province really up here in the Yukon, there's the only 2 places in the country that aren't doing it. And I mean, I understand that the reasoning and rationale that's been put out there is around the couple of hundred jobs at the major breweries here in the city, but I think that the provincial government, all provincial governments, all governments generally, are elected to look out to the greater good. If the interprovincial trade barriers dropping is considered to be in the best interest of, the other 37.5 million people across Canada, why is it not in the best interest of the 540,000 people that live in Newfoundland and Labrador? It's really hard to get your head around it. And while at the same time, our government is reiterating and then trying to hold the feet to the fire of the federal government that talked about dropping the rates of Marine Atlantic, which, everybody wants things to be a bit cheaper. But the kind of the not being plugged into the reality on the ground. I mean, you've had calls on your show the last week or two about the lack of capacity and the inability for people to use the service in the way that they want to use it. So how does that fit? How does dropping the rates fit in with the fact that people can't get on the boat to begin with? So it just shows, I think, a lack of connection or understanding to the issues that are facing people on the ground. In the world we live in now, government attitude of do as we say, not as we do, is really a challenge for people. And I think you're hearing it on your show. I've certainly heard it on your show, but people asking questions like, what is going on here?
Yeah. Some of the questions about Marine Atlantic, there's a couple of issues here. So we're talking about whether or not the boats are actually always full when we're told they are is one thing. The way the booking priority system, I'm still trying to figure it out myself, but I'll put this out there. I think there's a lot of people hanging their hat on the Marine Atlantic fees being cut by half and the Premier writing a letter because it was something that was promised. So whether or not it matches with reality, whether or not it has an appreciable difference on costs of living and costs of groceries and all the rest of it is an outcome that's simply at this point hypothetical. But I think when someone like the Prime Minister speaks to it directly, and says that that's something he would do, then I guess people just follow through to see whether or not a political promise can actually be kept, which is very rarely the actual case here. For me, in that exact same press conference, the biggest thing that came out of Carney's mouth was not about Marine Atlantic, it was about the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, talking about potentially restructuring DFO, which I think has a much bigger impact in broad terms in this province than a potential rate being reduced on Marine Atlantic.
Well, yes. I mean, the ability for government policy and government, changing direction on any given issue, be it DFO reorganization or how we treat the ferry system or how we treat interprovincial trade of alcohol, has real and profound impacts on the people that, live and work in Newfoundland and Labrador and in Canada generally every single day. And I think that what you feel like, and I like I said, I've taken it from people I'm listening to on your show, what we feel like is that the folks that are driving our bus, broadly, not just in Newfoundland and Labrador, but particularly in our province, which is where we live, there's a sense that they're not in any way kind of plugged into or aware of these issues. Go back to the alcohol trade. The impact of more access, freer access, potentially cheaper access to alcoholic beverages in Newfoundland and Labrador is a tremendous impact on the tourism and hospitality industry. It's millions of dollars of savings that make 10,000, 20,000 jobs in tourism and hospitality much, much more viable than they are today. They're currently very tenuous. We all know, you and I have talked and other people have talked about the challenges inside of the F&B industry right across the country. The impact of a better deal, a more attractive way to get product in, all of those things changes the face of these businesses, makes these jobs more viable. And these are again, 15, 20,000 jobs right across Newfoundland and Labrador, every small community you can name. And so the idea that we're not even going to consider that because of, these jobs over here, like as you said on your show many times, government picks winners and losers all the time. But there's a sense in Newfoundland and Labrador, I feel right now anyways, broadly, is that they're not picking the right winners. The vast majority of the population are not considered in what's going on. It is being piecemealed. They're putting out fires all over the place. There's no broad vision. There's no broad plan. There's no accountability, certainly. Look at what's going on with the travel nurses. Look at what's going on with the ferry systems, all these kind of things. So, the accountability that needs to come to bear when the government makes a decision to not not jump on the bandwagon of what every other province in the country is going to do, needs to be explained. People need to understand why, and not just to say, oh, we're protecting the 200 jobs at the brewery. That's not an answer. It's not a good enough answer, not in the province of 500,000 people, because as you said on the show, those jobs may or may not be in jeopardy. The likelihood that those two breweries are going to close completely, given, the state in the market and all that kind of stuff, maybe it's there, maybe it's not. We don't know. But to hamstring the whole province based on that, that's not the future success. Like that does not show a long-term plan or a vision for the viability of Newfoundland and Labrador. And so, I think that, in an election year for all of us, municipal that I'm hopefully going to be involved in, and, certainly provincial, is the accountability that should be demanded of people for all these decisions, from interprovincial trade of alcohol to ferry services to, travel nurses and the money. I mean, millions of dollars that are gone. And as you said, potentially fraudulently. And there's almost no one making a peep about it from the higher levels. We're going to look at it. I mean, they can't live in the ivory tower the way that they do. The accountability that has fallen on the average working person in Newfoundland and Labrador, particularly since COVID, has gone exponentially. That those of us that are living and working every day, we don't have the leeway to, just say, oh, well, I can't really do this today. I'll get to it next week or the week after. We don't live with those same rules. So the people that control, the province should not be able to live with them either. And it's not equitable what's going on. And I think the frustration level, I think I've heard it on your show a lot, and in a way that I've not heard it before. And I think that is profound. I do think that people are starting to ask these questions. What in the hell is actually going on here? Because we've got lots of resources, we've got lots of money, but, as my buddy's grandmother used to say, it's not being shared right. And so too few people are benefiting, and the reasons why that's happening are not being explained to the broad population of this province, and it needs to stop.
Fair enough. And the last comment is the union rep for the workers at one of the breweries anyway, on this show pretty much, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but pretty much conceded that if the legislation that mandates that if you want shelf space in a in a convenience store, corner store, gas station, the beer has to be brewed here. And it's over 80% of the beer bought in this province is bought in those types of stores. So if the interprovincial trade open up the floodgates and that legislation remained in place, it's hard to picture Molson and Labatt's walking away from the only opportunity to have shelf space in all of those aforementioned shops. So he pretty much said that. And again, I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, but if that legislation remains, then there's not really much of an argument to not sign on like the rest of the country did, with the exception of Yukon. Appreciate the time, Todd. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, Todd Perrin, running a War 2. Let's take a break. When we go back, Joey Warford wants to tell us about a folk fest coming up. Where? We'll find out. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Joey. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy. How are you making out?
Couldn't be better, man. How about you?
Oh, best kind. Paddy, just wanted to call in this morning, I guess, just to get it out to your listeners and to yourself about our upcoming Shea Heights annual Folk Fest happening this weekend. So I just wanted to go through, I guess, the schedule of events for the 3 days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So starting off Friday night, Paddy, we have a kids karaoke on the Shea Heights ball field from 6 to 8:30 p.m. It's an event that we've been having for the past few years now. The kids come up and sing a few tunes. They have a ball with it. They really enjoy it. On the field, we're going to provide hot dogs and hamburgers and drinks for the kids with no charge. Something new we're going to start off this year, hopefully to continue on at 8:30 after the kids karaoke. We're going to have an outdoor movie on the softball field. The original Jumanji movie is what we're going to play. And again, popcorn and cotton candy will be provided to the kids. We're just asking people that are attending to bring their own chair or a blanket to watch the movie. And again, it's the first time that we're going to try this, so hopefully we can do it with success and continue on for next year. And again, this is no cost for Friday night for any of the general public to attend this event. And then for Saturday is our main event. So Saturday we start off at 12 noon to 4 p.m. So we're going to have basically bouncy castles, face painting, balloon twisting, henna, characters, spin wheels, cash wheels, cantina barbecue, carnival style games. And to access the field, it's $3 per person or $10 for a family of 4+. And that gives you access to those events for the day. Also at 12 p.m. noon, running till 12 midnight is our beer garden. This is going to be live entertainment from 12 noon on Saturday all the way through midnight. So I can just bring you through the entertainers starting at 12
Quick
noon.
rundown.
It's Cook Collins and Haas Breen. 1 p.m. Rod Hutchings, 2 p.m. Sherry Breen, 3 p.m. Paul Maher, 4 p.m. Courtney Madison, 5 p.m. Tony Thompson, 6:30 we got Full Moon Fever, it's a Tom Petty cover band. 8 p.m. we got TTRs, the Tequila Rocking Birds, and to close it out this year we have Music at Work, it's a Tragically Hip cover band. They played last year and it was a huge success. Everybody loved them. So that's Saturday, and then Sunday we have in the community centre, just down from the softball field on Shea Heights. From 2 to 4 we have a family bingo, and then at 8 p.m. We're going to have a candlelight vigil, which we usually just do in recognition of the members of the community that has passed along, so their family members can come over, light a candle, and on behalf of their loved ones. And we also have a little social gathering after the candlelight vigil with a little bit of live music, so a bit of coffee and tea and a muffin. And we have live music there from a Ukrainian group, ERO. There's a local band here now that's living in our community, and we're going to get them on for 8:30 Sunday night.
Good on you, Joey. Hopefully it's a big success. It's really unfortunate some of the festivals around the province have gone by the wayside this year, including it may have been the last Newfoundland Labrador Folk Festival this past weekend in Bannerman Park, but hopefully you have a big success up on the brow.
Yeah, and we appreciate it. And, hearing it around the province about different festivals, it's hard to compete now, right? I mean, the festivals of the years gone past where, you get people to volunteer and come up. It's a big undertaking. It takes a lot of people, a lot of volunteers, a lot of sponsorship to make it successful. Hopefully Mother Nature plays on our side for Saturday for sure. And, so I appreciate your time, Paddy, and if you're around, pop up.
For sure, man, and I appreciate you making time for the show. Good luck with it, Joey.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the president of Newfoundland Trailways. That's Rick Noseworthy. Rick, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you?
Doing okay. How about you?
Good. Thanks for getting me on such a busy day. I appreciate that.
No problem.
I just wanted to talk to you about, with such a severe fire hazards in the province now, with the warning being so high, about some ATV safety that should be practiced.
Yeah, let's do it. So people talk about, hot exhaust or a muffler and can indeed cause a spark. So how common is that, Rick? Do we happen to know?
No, Paddy, I don't. I've seen it happen. All ATVs are supposed to have, and they leave the factory with a spark arrestor. ATVs and dirt bikes. And, of course, that's just that. It arrests sparks coming out of your exhaust. Over time, they can rust or plug up. So you need to check, for sure. So it's very important. It's very simple to check, and they're not expensive to replace. But, I've seen sparks come out of an exhaust. But the big thing that we see is very important is to stay on the hard-packed trails. Because this time of year, as you know, if you get off and you get into the wetlands, which is not allowed, but if you're in a bog and you come out, you're in peat moss. You come out, that peat moss is very flammable. it dries, and I've seen many ATVs going down the trail and just dropping embers. And that's, of course, where the peat moss gets in around the exhaust and the engine, dries off and catches on fire. And that's very important. That is probably more common than a spark arrestor. So, please stay on the hard-packed trails. And, of course, fire extinguishers, it's the law, but this time of year, it's a major, major necessity.
How does the spark arrestor work?
The spark arrestor is just inside your muffler, near your tailpipe. It's a wire mesh, and that mesh catches any sparks, like from a backfire or anything like that from your machine. And over time, that gets full of carbon. You might have to take it apart and shake it out or replace it, or just over time from the heat of your exhaust and time, that wire mesh tends to melt away or burn away. So then anything that comes out, just comes right out through your machine.
So people aren't mandated to have one. This is an option,
no,
is it?
You're not mandated. It is sort of mandated. The law says that you have to have, your exhaust pipe has to have it. And when you buy it, it has it. Like all ATVs, when they leave the factory and when they leave the dealership, got spark arrestors. What happens sometimes, people take them out for I don't know why. They make no difference as far as performance, means zero. And but makes them a little bit noisier. Sometimes aftermarket pipes, like a header, might have an open arrestor, which is illegal. So you need to be aware of that. So, but for the most part, I would say that 95% of the ATVs on the trails do have active working spark arrestors.
Yeah, like they should. If it doesn't compromise performance and it's really not impeding your ability to enjoy your machine, between that and staying on the hard packed trails, especially just now. I mean, we've got 9 wildfires burning. 1 is out of control. I don't know how any of these fires started, but it would be a shame for someone who's just trying to enjoy their ATV and to, innocently just be responsible for a fire. Nobody wants that. And nobody wants to be that ATV rider. So check your spark arrestor. Probably just play it safe now, but it's so hot and so dry that any little spark could be a problem.
Yeah, for sure, Paddy. And the ATVs have probably done more to prevent fires than started. The trail groups have done some great work, of course, opening up trails. These trails have worked as a fire break, and they also work as access for first responders. In many cases, if it wasn't for an ATV trail or a snowmobile trail, these guys could not get in with their equipment to fight the fires. So, it's also mutually beneficial. But, back to the point, with the weather being so hot and the woods being so dry, just the basic things. Make sure your spark arrestor is in place. Carry your fire extinguisher. Like, it wouldn't hurt to carry 2. Just be very, very careful. Stay on the hard pack stuff because, once again, the peat moss, it's facing the world that they use that for heat. So, we know it's extremely flammable. Dispose of your cigarettes properly. So, there's a lot of things that we can do to be safe because, it is a kinderbox out there now.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's no doubt about that. Where I live, I can only speak for my neck of the woods, it is bone dry. Absolutely bone dry, and anything could cause a grass fire. The grass is brown, easily lit. So there you go. Probably helpful advice, Rick, and hopefully folks who are operating their ATV will just have a quick look in the tailpipe, make sure their spark arrestor number 1 is there, and number 2, if it has to be replaced, I don't imagine they're very expensive, are they?
No, it's a wear and tear item over time, no doubt.
Okay. Appreciate this, Rick. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for your time, Paddy. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's Rick Nosworthy, President of Newfoundland Trailways. Let's go to line number 2. Junior, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patrick. Happy Wednesday to you and David.
The very same to you.
Thank you for taking my call, and it's a good day to be listening to your open line. I just heard you on with the president of the Atlantic Salmon Federation.
Yep.
And certainly appreciate the questions that you did ask him about catch and release and all that stuff, Fatty. And he did say that the salmon are basically they're in the critical condition. So the one question that needs to be asked to any group at all in Canada is catch and release conservation. And if our salmon are getting down in the critical zone, then the Salmon Watchers Assistance Group, Patty, that's our group and our president, and represent a lot of retention anglers on this island. Right now, we are going to sound the alarm on your open line show, and the feds are listening, province is listening. We're going to send the alarm on catch and release on our salmon. Our salmon is getting close to the endangered species. Catch and release is not conservation. One dead salmon through catch and release, just because you want to have some fun, is not conservation. And it's more about dignity than it is about, well, why people do it, Patty, and what groups are fighting for it. Most groups are fighting for it in the province is because they have a money condition with it. So it's, so they have money, and if we don't get together and soon and forget about the money, we have to get together and talk about catch and release and what is the win. We have to work out a problem, a solution to the problem. There is no control over catch and release. There's, like you said, a day at 40% mortality rate and higher. And temperatures like today, our rivers are still open. People are still catching and releasing. I'd say about 80 or 90% of the salmon are dying today, even those that are just jumping off the line. A hook salmon is a injured salmon. And Patty, based on science, catch and release is not conservation. Based on science, if the FAW wants something from DFO always say based on science. You can't have it based on science. Well, this is based on science, done by Jerry Burns on this island 6 years ago on the tamest river that you can ever do a study on, out in Western Arm Bay. The mortality rate was still up. When the temperatures went up, the mortality rate went up. The temperatures below 18 probably was about 6%. But right now, the mortality rate, and people, you hook a salmon and you release it, you see it swim away. It does the heart good. But I can guarantee you a study that was done 10 or 11 years ago on the Gander River, on the Gander River counting fence, salmon that were coming back dead at the fence, they were all taken out, they were all examined, and I'm going to say 70% of them had their air bladder broken, Patty. An air bladder broken on a salmon is a dead salmon. Even if you release it, you have no idea if that salmon has that broken air bladder. So, that's basically what I have to say. There's no control over catch and release. You can catch and release 10, 12 a day. There's no control. There's never been a conviction. Yes, you have your proper way of releasing the salmon, but I'm going to, sending a shout out there to the anglers who are the retention anglers. You're cut down to 2 salmon, and you're only allowed to kill 2. You have a body count. So with catch and release, there is no body count. And we have to talk about it somewhere along the line. Patty Winston Churchill once said, and I've said it before, if we're going to argue about the past, we're going to argue about the present, we're going to see that we have lost the future. And I've heard it many times on your line, stupidity is doing something over and over and over and getting the same results. So catch and release is killing salmon. And we are close to the endangered species, and something has to be done, especially here on this island, Patty. 70% of all the salmon in North America are coming from our rivers. And if we're going to keep it up, killing them, then the stupid Newfoundlander is going to say, oh, it's your fault.
Just give me, what's that stat you just used? 70% of all the salmon where come from our rivers?
According to Jerry Burns, at a meeting I was saying, Jerry said 75%, so I think it's 70% of the wild Atlantic salmon in North America, or it could be wrong, it could be Canada, are coming from our waters, Newfoundland waters. And you can ask Jerry Burns that question.
Seems like an extraordinarily high number. I don't know if it's true or not, but just jumped out of the comments as a really big number. But I suppose we can follow up and find out a bit more about that and who arrived at that actual number itself. But anyway, anything else, Junior, before I have to go?
No, that's it, Patty. I certainly appreciate the call. And the one question I ask any group that comes on is catch and release conservation.
Fair enough. Happy to talk about it. Thank you.
You too. You and David have a great day.
Thanks, Junior. All the best. All right, let's take a break. I'm not sure who's next, but we'll figure it out right after this. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Saying more to the co-chair external with St. John's Pride. That's Eddie St. Coeur. Eddie, you're on the air.
Awesome. How you doing, Patty?
Excellent. You?
Oh, listen, I'm just grand. I got 5 days left to a festival that's been going really great, and just wanted to call in and let people know that we've got, I think, 12 events left. There's 3 tonight. There's events going on every day until we end with the parade on Sunday, and then our big Pride in the Park celebrations that happen on Sunday night.
A couple of quick questions for me, because I had a couple of calls on this. One, a gentleman representing Recovering from Religion. Apparently they were invited to participate in the party in the park, then told that they're not welcome. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but they had some questions as to why, given the work they've done with the community.
Yeah, I think that was the case, and I think we learned a little bit about our processes there. This group didn't really have a connection to our community, and it's not to say that we can't form one, and we had actually written back to them and said, maybe for this year, why don't you folks come and attend our event, and we can kind of get to know each other, and then we can talk about 2026, and I think we've established from that maybe that's the practice that we need to take going forward, because our event is getting bigger. We are attracting more and more people. I think this Recovering from Religion group is based out of Kansas, somewhere in the States. So there is a growing interest of people that kind of want to get involved, and we just figured out that protocol this year of, we really should make sure the groups have a connection to our community, and it's not to say that we won't see them next year. We just encourage them to attend the event, get to know us a bit, we can get to know them, and then we know that everything's copacetic when we're bringing people into these spaces, because you can imagine we do have a pretty vulnerable group of people, and we also do have a target demographic that people like to get access to. So we realize that we kind of just have to have some processes in place there.
This is not a question to be saucy, it's just fundamental. Why would anyone in the community, any group or otherwise, require an invitation or a seal of approval to be able to attend public events in public spaces?
Well, because I think it's a fair question, right? Because we do have vulnerable groups of people. We have a lot of racialized people. We've got a lot of minority groups that are involved with our organization. So we just try and make sure that the relationships that we have established with different community members and what we've kind of been trying to grow over the last couple of years keeps going on that trajectory, because you can imagine there are a lot of people that are quite confrontational. There's groups of people who are quite aggressive towards our community. So we do like to kind of put some checks and balances in place just to make sure that we're just doing as much risk management as we can. And not to say that this group would have caused any risk. We just realized that we didn't really have a connection to them. And then when I started asking around to different atheists that are in our local community, they also didn't really have a connection to them. So it was and when we checked their website, they weren't really, there's some things on there about supporting the queer community, and it might be extensive, but it wasn't really focused forward from the things that we could see. So we just took a step back and said, we're just going to evaluate this, and we're growing every year, and this kind of tabling in the park is a new thing that we're trying. So we did just want to put some due diligence in there, and then just kind of start this practice of, to be in community, we'd like you to have a connection to the community.
And what's the relationship now between your group and law enforcement? Because there was all sorts of back and forth over the years about members of law enforcement welcoming the parade, not welcome, uniformed or otherwise. So where does that stand?
Oh, it's the exact same as it was last year, and I think that we saw overwhelming support last year for people who actually turned out to the parade. We had a lot more people from racialized backgrounds. We had a bigger group of people from Indigenous backgrounds, and those were kind of the places where we took that ask and that moment of pause. And what we've said to enforcement agencies is, there's been a lot of work done to try and improve relations, and we haven't really seen movement in that respect. And we also haven't really seen enforcement agencies try and work with us to try and figure out what that gap is. And then especially back in May, I don't know if you saw, but the province had put out a survey about how different communities feel towards local police enforcement, and the responses that came back between queer people back to enforcement were not great. So it was one of those bittersweet things of, it's not a situation that we'd like to know that people in our community feel that way towards agencies that are supposed to improve community safety. But I guess the silver lining to it is I don't have to keep having that conversation and try and proving that point. The government did a survey, and now we have the data that shows there is a big disconnect here between the queer community and enforcement agencies.
Fair enough. Anything else you'd like to offer this morning, Eddie?
Tonight we've got our burlesque showcase at the Bella Vista, and there's also Women's International Film Festival is doing a film screening. The Elders are doing a book swap and kind of intergenerational knowledge exchange at Raucous. And then there's still events like Drag on George is happening on Friday. A Spectrum Queer Choir does their show. There's a run on Saturday morning. Drag bingo's happening as a fundraiser for Quadrangle NL. And then Sunday we clue it all up with the big parade downtown.
Good luck with it, Eddie. Appreciate your time this morning.
Awesome. Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Sadie Sencour is the co-chair external, St. John's Pride. Before the news, let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the executive director at the YWCA. That's Maria Gentle. Maria, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks for having me on again. Patty, how are you?
Excellent today. You're always welcome. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, what's on my mind is just continuing our conversation about the Circle of Distinction Awards. I was talking to you last week, and we've heard from community they need a little bit more time. We know it takes a lot of work to get nominations in, so we have extended the deadline to nominate folks to July 20th at midnight. So this is to celebrate women and gender diverse people in community for the Circle of Distinction Awards that happen in September.
How involved is the application process? Or the nomination
that's a really good question. Well, we want to make sure that people have put in some thought, that we've got good evidence for our selection committee to make some good decisions. You know, people really value these awards, so we do ask nominators to make a written submission, to have a letter of support, the consent of the nominee, a picture and a bio so that we can use that for our promotion. So it does take some time and thought, and you know, we know that it takes time for nominators to really convey in limited time the admiration and appreciation for the folks that they are lifting up in community.
Because the ceremony is not until September, is it?
That's right.
Okay.
It's in September. It's during Gender Equality Week. It's on September 23rd. It's going to be a morning ceremony that we've hosted at the Signal Hill campus. It's a wonderful event. But it does take time to put together all of the nominations. On our end, we have our amazing graphic illustrator, Nikita Morris, is back with us, who will be illustrating those nominee portraits, putting them together. So there's a lot of work on our end to pull it together. So that's why we give time for community to have a little extra time to put in their nominations. It's so important that we get nominators to highlight folks in community.
People can't be recognized unless they're nominated. So are you getting enough nominations to your liking, or is it simply about the work involved in putting a nomination together?
Oh, it's both, you know, and we hear from folks, it's always crunch time around deadline time, and so we hear from folks who would like more time, and we want to be able to afford that to people. So we're extending the deadline to July 20th at midnight. There's new nomination categories for young people in celebration of our 100th year, really highlighting the work of women and gender diverse folks of all ages. We still have our signature Trailblazer Youth Award. We have Social Justice Awards. We have Equity at Work Awards, highlighting great work environments. And so perhaps there's a young entrepreneur who wants to be part of that category as well. We have our real anchor award of the Lifetime Achievement Award, as well as Innovation Awards. So there's so many categories for folks to recognize people who are really doing excellent work in community. And again, we're really celebrating gender equity, and this award is for women and gender diverse folks, really shining a light on community.
So the nomination deadline has been extended to midnight Sunday, the 20th of July. So if you know someone who fits into one of those categories and needs to be recognized, please do exactly that and nominate that person. Good to have you on, Maria. Good luck with it.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Maria Gentle is the executive director at the YWCA. Let's take a break for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the gentleman who won the Liberal nomination to run in St. John's East, Kitty Vitty. That's John Whalen. John, you're on the air.
morning, Patty. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you on the program. Of course, St. John's East Kitty Vitty used to be represented by John Abbott, who, as a result of the settlement, stepped down as the member for that particular voting district, remains as a cabinet minister. The easy question to get us going here, John, is given the amount of time that the Liberals have been in government, given the number of senior cabinet ministers who are not intending to run again, why run for the Liberals?
Well, I think what you're seeing right now under Premier Hoboken is a party that's going through a renewal process. I think this is a great time to be a member of the Liberal Party in Newfoundland and Labrador. There's a lot of energy coming to the team. I mean, just look at the nomination fight contest we had yesterday. Over 400 people voted on a hot, sunny Tuesday afternoon, and they had the choice between two excellent candidates, myself and Megan Reynolds. And, Megan ran a great campaign, lots of energy, lots of connection out knocking on doors. And so I think that's I disagree with Alex Maryland and his analysis that was in CBC today. This is not a party that's in trouble and not showing momentum. This is a party that's getting a good wind and gearing up for what's ahead of it.
Give us a bit of understanding of your background for the voters in your district.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, I'm a lawyer by profession. I know that cuts both ways. It sort of makes people cringe at times. I'm a bencher of the Law Society. I'm a past chief adjudicator for the RNC-PCC. I had to give that job up to run. I'm a labor arbitrator and a workplace investigator. I run an exclusively neutral legal practice. So I don't have clients. I don't take a side. I just help find solutions. Before that, I was a senior executive. I was in-house counsel to Seafair Capital Incorporated, and I ran Blue Sky Family Care, which, as you know, is one of the largest providers of residential care for children and youth across the island. So I've got a good background in law. I've got a good background in business. I've got a good background in community health, all of which are key issues facing St. John's East Kitty Vitty today.
So, as I remind the listeners, the voters all the time, no one party, no one candidate is perfect. No one party or candidate has all the answers. So, given the Liberal government since 2015, where do you think we need to do better? Because one thing to build that momentum, one thing to be, just wearing the Liberal banner and everything is hunky-dory, because it isn't. And neither party is perfect. So, where can we do better? Give us a couple of specific examples.
Well, I think, there's a great line that you don't let the urgent distract you from the important. And all too often, and that is just politics in general in Western democracies, is that the urgent often overrides the important. So I think there's a lot of stuff where we need to dig into the nuts and bolts of how we operate and get in and make sure that people who are doing their jobs right. And all too often, the issues that we see bubble up and make headlines start off as jobs where someone is not administering their role properly. And a lot of that is really unattractive sort of nuts and bolts work about digging in and saying, well, procedurally, how are we operating? And process-wise, are we being efficient? And are the right people communicating with the right people here? And that has a lot to do with sort of bureaucratic inertia. But I think one of the things I would say generally at the federal level, at the provincial level, is that we need to do a deep dive and we need to climb into how sort of, agencies, boards, and commissions and the core civil service operates on a day-to-day level to make sure that people understand that they're in that role to deliver for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. When I was running Blue Sky and you'd be talking to large groups of staff, I always like to go back to the old adage that if you went to NASA in the 60s and 70s and you said to the janitor, what do you do here? The janitor's answer would be, well, I'm putting people on the moon, right? That sense of mission and that sense of purpose, I think you're starting to see that in NLHS and that modernization, and we need to bring that sort of focus to the rest of the civil service as well.
It's an interesting concept because the civil service, by and large, even though there's a lot of decision making and all the boots on the ground type of concepts, is for the most part nameless, faceless. So how do we bring that level of accountability to folks who the general voter doesn't know who they are, doesn't know what they do, doesn't know their experience or their education? Like things like the Sunshine List come to mind. We just have a number of people earning $100,000 plus, but we don't know what they do. We don't know how effective they are. So how do we make that accountability part of the civil service in addition to politicians?
Well, I think you're talking about a broader institutional change there, Patty, and that sort of thing takes a lot of time. And what you need to do is you need to start that conversation. And, I think, having Dennis Mahoney in now as Clerk of Executive Council is a great kind of shift that you'll see. in terms of, accountability starts at each step, right? So when you're the government, you take accountability for being the government, and the deputy ministers have to take accountability for their role in being the deputy minister. And accountability only works when it comes hand in hand with responsibility and hand in hand with authority. So if you don't give someone the tools to make a decision, you can't hold them accountable for the outcome. And I think that's sort of the cultural change we need to instill in that group, and that's a multi-year effort. Let's not kid ourselves about what kind of undertaking that would be.
Right, and like everything else in this world, complicated and things that take time, they have to start somewhere. So yeah, that's kind of why I asked. Anything else quickly, John, before I take another call?
No, I'm excited to start knocking doors. My kids are excited. It's camp day today, so they get some cookies while we're out knocking on it. So look, happy to get the work going, happy to be part of it, and excited to have so many people out supporting the Liberal banner last night.
Appreciate your time, John. Good luck out there.
Have a great day. Thanks.
You too. You're welcome. Bye-bye. John Whalen will be running for the Liberals, St. John's East, Kitty Bitty. Before the break, let's go to 4. Heather, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm calling because I'm the parish secretary for Our Lady Queen of Families Parish in Mount Pearl. And we just wanted to announce and let people know that today and tomorrow, when temperatures are going to be really hot, that at our church we have a cooling center that any and everybody is welcome to come to if they just want to come in and cool off for a little bit. We have a great big open space. People can come in. We have some games available for kids. People can come in, play cards, have some water or coffee or tea and a snack, and just enjoy the day, but cool off a little bit out of the prime hot temperatures, so to speak.
It's an excellent idea. It's extremely warm today, which I mentioned off the top of the show. Maybe also a good idea to just have that friendly check-in with some of your more vulnerable neighbors to make sure that they're doing okay. So not only churches, but other charitable organizations and municipalities, on days like today, opening up a cooling center is extremely helpful, because not everyone's got the mini split. Not everyone's got the opportunity to cool down at home, and nobody wants to spend all the afternoon walking around the grocery store simply for the air conditioning. So I'm glad you're doing this.
Exactly. Yeah, so our address is 110 Ashford Drive. We're there right next to St. Peter's Primary, and we're right behind O'Donnell High School. So again, any and everybody, we're open all day, and people are welcome to just come on in. We've got signage directing people into the cooling center where they can go. And some of our parishioners have actually come in and dropped off some snacks that we have to share with people if they want some, because they know we're doing this today and tomorrow. So, yeah, we just want to make sure everybody knows that we are open and we're a safe place to come. And we'd love to see you.
Thanks for doing it, Heather, and thanks for letting us know.
Thanks, Patty. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. There you go. So Our Lady Queen of Families in Mount Pearl, Ashford Drive. You need a place to cool off, you can maybe go there. Let's take our final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1 and say good morning to Mike Torville with the Wooden Boat Museum out in Winterton. Good morning, Mike. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Just wondering, have you ever been to the Wooden Boat Building Museum in Winterton?
I have. Years ago, but I have been there.
Okay, man. You need to go back again, because we've got a lot of changes made, and it's a great way to keep our culture and heritage going in Newfoundland. It's the Provincial Wooden Boat Building Museum. I happen to be one of the board of directors, also a teacher, which means the history part of it is great for me. I'm calling today just to look for some support from our community. And just to give an overview of what the museum offers, we have a number of workshops on the go in the summertime. We have workshops for adults that can go and help actually help build a boat with master boat builder Jerome Canny. And if you haven't met Jerome, he's one great boat builder, I can tell you that, and a great guy. So we can go as adults. You can go for one day or week-long workshops in the summer. There's also a junior boat builders program where kids can come out and do a tour of the museum, and they can actually make a model boat with Jerome as well, and learn how boats are made and what their purpose was in our past. We are looking right now. We're trying to get some sponsors, community sponsors, whether companies or individuals, to help keep the museum going. And it's hard to keep those things going now when this time. It's just getting people coming to the door. We're having great success with people coming to visit the museum, but with the cost of keeping it up now, it's becoming a lot more of a struggle. So we're looking for people, if people want to do get a membership. Memberships to the museum are $30 for individual, and that gives you unlimited access to the museum and to the boat building shed, and also gives you some discounts at our store inside. We're also looking for Jerome now is basically working on a project on the Baccaloo Island fishery, and that is a big part of Newfoundland's past. And so we're looking for people to help with that. On August the 23rd, we are having a fundraiser. It's called Out in Boat. And what it is, in Winterton on August the 23rd, we are having people can come out and they can go cod fishing. We're having some of the boats that have been built in the past. People are bringing their boats back, and we're going to have a boat parade, and people have the opportunity to go cod fishing. We got local people taking people out cod fishing. You actually get to keep your fish. And there's a cod dinner, and there's a dance to follow. So that's on August 23rd. Cost of tickets are $60, and everything is included in that. You can get them by calling 709-583-2070, and you'll either get Betty or Glennis, and they can take care of you. We're just trying to keep this part of our culture and heritage going strong, and we need the community to come and help support us, and hopefully we'll get a lot of people coming out on August the 23rd. Hopefully you can join us.
I don't know where I am August 23rd, to be honest. Just a couple of questions here. Like, I really appreciate the work you do. I've seen Jerome in action, in particular at the Rooms one time. There used to be this program for grade 6 students, I believe it was, to come up and see Jerome, finishing off a Rodney or something of the like. Yeah. But I remember speaking to the boys, talking about the boat in the box and the potential. Yeah. I know it was a prototype, and there was some conversation about trying to monetize the boat in the box, so which is basically all pre-cut stuff in a box so you can build your own Rodney or punt in your own backyard. Did it ever happen?
It didn't happen right yet. We still have it on the table. It's one of those processes where it takes a lot of, like I call it, the engineering and the marketing and everything with it. And being a nonprofit, I mean, it's trying to get the funds to basically actually put this into being. It was a great and still is a great idea. And as far as I know, we're still thinking about it, but it's just put on the back burner for a little while. Yeah, because it came across as a great idea to me. Not everybody can get to Winterton, and people would maybe love to do that in at their own pace, in their own home or their own workshop or backyard, whatever the case may be. So, Mike, anything else you want to tell us about the Wooden Boat Museum and any workshops or opportunities before we say goodbye? I'd just like to tell you a big shout out to Jerome and his group. I'm in social. I've had Jerome come into my classroom. He's actually, last year they came in for a week into, I teach at O'Donnell, and they came in and we had like 500 kids came to O'Donnell over 4 days, and they got to experience using the tools and showing how boats were made. And this comes with a lot of volunteers and Jerome's expertise, and I think we just need to keep this big part of our culture going. And the only way we can do that, if anyone hasn't been out to the museum yet, guys, I'm telling you, I used to take kids out there from town a few years ago, and they loved it. It's so full of our history. It's amazing. And actually get out and use the tools and make the wooden boat. It's something we need to keep going. So hopefully we get a lot of people coming out now on August 23rd. And like I say, you can contact Betty or Glennis at 709-583-2070. And we get this weather and there's lots of codfish out in Trinity Bay. I'm going to tell you, I was out last weekend, so it's a good meal to follow that day. Sounds about right, Mike. Appreciate the time. Keep up the good work. Yeah, thank you, Patty. You're welcome. Bye-bye. It's Mike Torville, Board of Directors with the Wooden Boat Museum. Final word this morning likely goes to line number 2. Mike, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty.
Morning.
I just wanted to call in about the Greenwood Street area again in Marystown. I'm starting to notice more of a pattern the more I dig into this, the more reading I do, the more information I get. And it's all leading to me to believe that the problem, getting this problem corrected, I think our roadblock is at the top of the town in Marystown. I think it's our mayor that's preventing this from happening. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough time today to make the points to get my point across as to what's making me think that. But the motion I read about the subdivision the last time we talked, where they called it a subdivision when they moved the motion but didn't follow subdivision regulations when they built the development, that was moved by the mayor. During this time, he was going back and forth between the mayor's chair as well as covering off the public works chair because we were down to councillor at that time. In October of 2022, the same time this was going on, he put the issue on the table about the catch basin that, where a man's driveway was being washed out. So he took care of that problem. The ditches being removed from the new development after they were all put in, all those culverts being removed and the ditches being filled back in. There was a single email sent to the mayor that explained the frustration of a new resident in a new home that they just they just landscaped, and it was her frustrations about looking out the windows at a ditch in front of her home. And I can understand her point because I think they were expecting curb and gutter and the like of what you would have in a subdivision when they built that new home, but they didn't end up with that. They ended up with ditches, and as a result of that, that email was forwarded on by him, and all of a sudden, that stuff all goes away, which would have, helped control the water from that area. The email we discussed the last time that I was on here, the mayor was the person who sent that to all the councillors, and there's 6 or 7 points in that are far from true. Several different ways trying to fix my mother's problem. This email was in 2024 of August. This culvert was only dropped a couple of weeks ago, and that was the first attempt that the town had done anything to take away problems from my mother's building lot. It says also that the town just put another ditch out back of her house. That to me means more than one. They've never put any there behind her house. They put lots above her, pointed at her, but have done nothing to get the water past her. Go ahead.
I'm just going to hop in because I just had a peek at the clock. It's 11:59 and 35 seconds, so we'll leave it there, but you're welcome to come back with an update when you have one, Mike.
I'll call you back tomorrow, Paddy.
Yeah, we'll see how the queue looks, but I appreciate this. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, there you go. All right, Mike had the last word. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.